We extend our hand to you, and I really look forward to an opportunity for some mutual meetings between the City Council and your board.
I look forward to it.
Thank you. The next agenda item is number 5, and that's council reports. The purpose is to allow individual council members to report on meetings, events, training opportunities, and other activities that they've recently participated in. Last time we started from my left with Mr. Bonato, so this time we're going to start from my right. Ms. Bolton, do you have anything to share with us?
I have nothing to report at this time.
Mr. Schiff? Mr. Mattei? Yes.
Last week I had occasion to attend the COG meeting as the city's representative, and it was business as usual, except for the fact that they were in need of a letter from us, and Pete may have spoken to you, or I know she talked to Lewis. A letter had from us indicating our desire to participate in the multimodal station and that sort of stuff.
Okay, I'll follow up with
Yeah,
this.
I at the end of the meeting, when we had the meeting with the Colorado Department of Transportation, I thought I overheard Pete talking to Lewis, so he may have a leg up on that and may have already done what we need to do.
Okay.
And then the only other thing is I've had occasion, as has most of us, to attend the celebrations of the 100th anniversary of Ludlow Memorial. Michelle and I had occasion to go to the Blue Mansion and listen to Mother Jones, and that was just outstanding. And we all went to the memorial ceremony at up at Ludlow. As I listened to all those stories and so forth, and having had some personal experience in as much as my grandfather came here in 1911 for the sole purpose of working in the mines and was up at Hastings during this time, it occurs to me that 27 different languages, I'm told, were spoken at that mine camp. And the thing that made them successful in weathering the storm, weathering the massacre and all the things that happened, were one, they were resolute, they were resilient, and they were united. And I think that learning from our history and our past, that's a lesson to the city of Trinidad and all the people like the hospital and the schools and the county commissioners and everyone else. We need to be resolute, we need to be resilient, and most importantly, we have to be united in whatever we're trying to do for the betterment of our area. And I say area so as to include region, because as the city goes, I believe so goes the county. I'm done.
And Ms. Miles?
I also went to the ceremony on Saturday at the History Museum, and I was really inspired by Mother Jones as well. You know, we all, Trinidad's fallen on difficult times, but what I learned about, the rootstock of this community firsthand was really quite moving to me. I mean, she spoke of losing 4 children to yellow fever in 1 year, and it was really, really very touching. The next day, I went to the ceremony at the massacre site, and I had not been there before, and I regret not going there before. And I do plan to return. There were 600 to 700 people there. There were union people from all over the country, and quite a few, especially from Colorado, but it was different unions. It wasn't all mine workers. There were electricians there were plumbers, and that was really quite inspiring. As Anthony can tell you, we sat through 3 hours, and Bernadette as well, we sat through 3 hours worth of speeches without break. Now, I'm not going to say I didn't get up and stretch my legs, but I've never sat through 3 hours of speeches and had my attention captured as much as I did on Sunday. So anyway, just wanted to report on that.
Ms. Velasquez? Mr. Bonato?
The only thing, Madam Mayor, I have to say is I have to echo what Mr. Mattei and Michelle just said about the Ludlow Memorial. I think that Mike Romero and Mr. Patero should really feel good that this event went in such a good way. It's a humble feeling that being raised here and my dad being a coal miner and my grandpa, my uncles, and it's just a humble feeling to me when I sat there to listen to those people that it kind of brought tears to my eyes. And I often wonder, we as a people, as we move along today, is like Mr. Mattei says, we have to come united. I think if we come united, a lot of our bad situations that we're going through right now with budgets and stuff like that, we have to work together, and I know that positive things will come out of it. So it's just, I'm really glad that the council went. I'm so glad that the town, a lot of the people here in town were there. And Mr. Botero, Mr. Romero, Yolanda, everybody that was involved with that, that was a great ceremony. And I thank you all for coming.
Thank you. I also attended the Ludlow celebration, and sitting there listening to representative from the United Mine Workers, and my dad was a miner, and the fact that I was also a member of a union, which was the Communication Workers of America. As I sat there, it was just deja vu. I heard those speakers and I reflected back on things that my father told me when he was working in the mines. And I think it's so important that we give credit to the unions, because they have fought to bring a living wage to people here in the United States, plus the safety issues. You know, my grandfather told me that when he worked in the mines, he actually went to work with his father when he was still a child, and actually saw his father, Tomas Abeda, killed in a fall of rock and coal in Boncarbo. So it's unbelievable what our ancestors went through, and it's just so important that we recognize all the hard work that has been done by the unions to try and raise the standard of living and to raise the standard of safety for all of our workers here in the United States. I also want to say that I had the privilege to attend what is called a casing ceremony at Fort Carson. And that was prior to the deployment of the 2nd Battalion, 4th Infantry, which you may recall were the military that came down here for a rotation in the spring out at Piñon Canyon. And bless their hearts, I have never seen a more moving ceremony, and knowing that all of those young men and women are being deployed overseas during these tough political times where, you know, we have problems with financing through our government, plus the world issues that we're facing in the Middle East. But I think it's very important that we recognize that these young men and women are still putting their lives in danger for us, and that they are going overseas to protect us and to help their citizens back home. So, and that pretty much concludes my report. And now it is Mr. Akers' turn. We're at agenda item 6, which is reports by the city manager and city attorney.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Not a whole lot to report this week. You found at your place our draft budget and CIP. That'll be a living document for the next several weeks, if not months. Staff will present some information next week about it, and we'll start the discussions. I think we still have a long way to go to balance the budget, but we'll get there. Second, I've sent out an email late this evening. One of the things that has been mentioned is having council take a tour of facilities. I came up with real quick, as my calendar gets busy, as does all of yours, a suggestion of possibly this Friday afternoon or next Monday afternoon. And if neither of those dates work, we can look for other dates as well. And then next Thursday, I will be out of the office. It's my wedding anniversary, so I get to spend it with my bride, but I also have the Action 22 conference on Friday and Saturday in the Springs that I'll be attending. And then the following week, just so I don't forget, is the Economic Development Council of Colorado Fall Conference in Denver, and I'll be attending that on the 17th and 18th.
Are there any questions from council?
I
Ms.
just have
Mines?
one. Is there any further progress on North Lake?
Yes, in fact, we'll be discussing more details in the executive session. A lot of good progress is made. I talked with the contractor, our engineering rep, and our site representative up there today. The biggest issue, if you recall, the last time I gave an update was getting the stilling basin dewatered enough to start construction. They were able to get that dug today. They will pour the first concrete portion of that tomorrow. The contractor's also about 90% done with the berm fill, which is extending the berm of the landfill. They've done the test section on the grouting for the riprap. That will take some time, but the contractor is working on a couple of things simultaneously now. And the pipe, for the spillway pipe, needs about one more day. They're waiting on a specially manufactured one of the last sections of pipe to make it fit to where the connections come forward. Contractor told me today he thinks he'll have all the substantial work done by the end of the month with the seeding and cleanup and stuff like that in November. So a lot of good movement.
Praise God.
And in light of the onset of the colder weather, this Friday is supposed to be below freezing.
Right. And I've been told when we have to worry about it from a construction standpoint, one is when they pour concrete, it's got to be a rising temperature. That's been working out beautifully. And then as far as timing wise, and then when we can no longer do seeding and stuff like that is when it's the hard set of the freeze in the soil, and that typically doesn't happen up there until December.
Any other questions?
You mentioned touring facilities on Friday or Monday. Would you
Yes.
mind emailing us some additional information on that?
As far as, I sent out a email with time and a couple of dates and just whatever you would, as far as what your preference is, or if we need to look at some other days as well.
Okay.
And
So
meet
you
at
have
City
already
Hall.
sent an email?
Pardon?
You have already sent?
Yes, I
it?
have.
I haven't received
Okay.
it, so.
It may have
It'll
come.
be there in the morning.
It should be there, and I'm offering to drive and be the tour guide.
Okay. I'm sure it'll be there in the morning. Thank you.
If it's not, give me a call and we'll figure out what happened.
Any other questions? Mr. Downs?
Madam Mayor, ladies and gentlemen, council, thank you. I don't normally report on things I do, because Lord knows I don't do very much, but I wanted to just say that last Friday I had the distinct pleasure of going to the grand opening of Councilman Bolton's new antique store. And what a gorgeous building that is. But anyway, it was nice to have something to do, and when it is open, you need to go and see this beautiful building. I believe the title is going to be Coin Dancer Antiques. Okay, good. Anyway, just gorgeous building, and just wanted to let you know I did something. Woohoo!
I concur,
You bet.
it is a gorgeous building. I was there, I stayed a lot longer than I expected to. It was
Yeah.
good food and good company.
Indeed, it
And
was a
beautiful,
very lovely grand.
beautiful venue.
Yeah.
Nothing to report on your Raiders?
Yeah, I know, thank you. Is this an indication of how my evaluation is gonna go? Because this is not gonna be, no, just kidding.
I'm just kidding you, Counselor.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, I understand.
Any other questions from council? I think we're probably ready then to move on to agenda item 7, which is consideration of approval of the property, casualty, and workers' compensation insurance coverage renewal through the Colorado Intergovernmental Risk Sharing Agency for 2014. And you may recall we did review this at our last work session. Mr. Aker, do you have any preliminary comments?
The only thing I have to add is we took council's suggestion, we've modified it to where we're taking the $1,000 deductible for the workman's comp, and we've got the pages in there to reflect that.
Right. So if everything is in order, I will entertain a motion to approve the oh,
Madam Mayor,
yes, sir.
was it last week when Mrs. Bolton had a question about how many compensation we have, workman's comp out? Did we ever get that?
Yes, we had 8 claims.
Yeah, we got it.
to date on
I didn't know
workman's comp.
something got it. Okay.
Okay, it turns out 1,000, as you calculated, is the sweet spot.
It really
If we
is.
have that number of claims to go. Yeah.
If we stay within that, we can have a savings of up to $16,546.
Okay, I didn't, okay, thank you.
And to reiterate, it's the goal of management and all the employees that we keep that down and continue to lower it.
Yeah, and I'd encourage you to include additional training because obviously you don't want employees to be injured. So, safety training is important. So if everything's in order, I will entertain a motion to approve the renewal agreement as presented for the 2014 budget year.
So move.
Motion by Ms. Bolton.
Second.
Second by Mr. Shu. Any discussion or further questions? And I think we're ready for roll call.
Bolton?
Yes.
Benado?
Yes.
Matei?
Yes.
Miles?
Yes,
Shu?
Yes.
Velasquez?
Yes.
Baca Gonzalez?
Yes. The next agenda item is 8A, and that is to consider a special events permit, malt, vinous, and spiritus, requested by Arthur Roy Mitchell Memorial Incorporated, located at 105 East Main Street, and this will be for October 19, 2013, which I understand is the Black and White Ball. And I see Miss Paula Little in the audience. Would you please come forward, Miss Little, and identify yourself and tell us a little bit about this upcoming event?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, members of council, for letting me speak. Well, this license is for the Black and White Ball that we're calling Spurs and Lace this year. We want you all to know about it, and you see posters around town. We're putting 60 of these around. The tickets this year are $35, and corporate tables are available, sponsorships available, perks, lots of perks with the sponsorships. And we are having the dessert auction again, dancing to the tunes of Whiskey Creek. So it's going to be a fantastic night. We'll have a regular silent auction too. And so we invite you all. And I'd like to let you know the Smithsonian show got a 1-week extension. So it's going to run now through October 12th. And we're having a great response on that. Many tourists are coming in. So good for tourism, good for the economy. So,
And thank you for your leadership in bringing that to the
oh,
city.
you're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for your support of that. So Black and White Ball coming up, only a couple weeks
Indeed,
away.
I'll get my boot scootin' boogie boots ready. If everything is in order, I will entertain a motion to approve the special events permit for the date requested.
So move.
Motion by Ms. Velasquez,
Second?
second by Ms. Bolton. Is there any discussion or questions from council? And seeing none, we're ready for the roll call.
Bolton?
Yes.
Benado?
Yes.
Matei?
Yes.
Miles?
yes.
Shu?
Yes.
Velasquez?
Yes.
Baca Gonzalez?
Yes. The next agenda, thank you, Ms. Little. The next agenda item is 8B, and that is a hotel and restaurant liquor license renewal request by Image Hospitality LLC, doing business as Quality Inn, located at 3125 Topol Drive. Is there a representative from the establishment present this evening? See them. I believe I'm going to need a motion then to table this because the individual does have to be present for us to take action.
So moved.
Motion to table by Ms. Bolton,
Second?
second by Ms. Velasquez. Any discussion or questions? And I think we're ready for the roll call.
Bolton?
Yes.
Benado?
Yes.
Matei?
Yes.
Miles?
Yes.
Shu?
Yes.
Velasquez?
Yes.
Baca Gonzalez?
Yes. And Mr. Aker, I assume tomorrow we'll be in communication with the individuals. Maybe something happened, but just to ensure they're here
Yes.
next go round. Thank you. The next agenda item is 8C, and that's consideration of the purchase of 2 trucks from Pioneer Natural Resources, one for the gas department and one for the power and light department. And Mr. Aker, do you have any comments on this item?
No, ma'am, I think we provided, had quite a bit of discussion. I think it's just, I mean, you could, if you want my recommendation, I will give that. I've kind of left it open. And we gave some information on all of our fleet, and I didn't know if council had any questions or comments on that as well. So, my thought is, given where we are with the budget, I know it's a good deal, but I think the vehicles we've got can probably extend their life a little bit longer. And I would recommend that we don't purchase, but I brought it forward to council for their consideration because it was kind of out of our budget, and we'll take council's direction.
And if everything is in order, I will entertain a motion.
We need to make a motion not to.
Not to?
Either to approve
That's what I
or not to approve.
Well, I make a motion that on Mr. Aker's recommendation that we don't approve them at this particular time.
Motion by Mr. Shu, second by Ms. Velasquez. And just for clarification of the record, this is a vote not to proceed with the purchase of the two vehicles proposed. And are there any questions or discussion?
Well, I had
Ms.
occasion
Miles?
to speak with Mr. Hadaway, and he thought that these were a very, very good deal. But I think he also made the comment you did, Mr. Aker, which is that the fleet is manageable at its current level. And I think in light of what we've got going on with the budget, I'm inclined to agree.
Any other questions?
And while I see this as a very cost-effective purchase, after having had the opportunity to look through the inventory of the city fleet, these two trucks don't seem to be as important as some of the other needs that we're facing.
Any additional comments?
I found it disparaging to see that we have numerous vehicles dated back to the 90s with close to 200,000 miles. And even frightening to see that the fire department's ladder truck is a 1975 with 150,000 miles.
Mr. Aker,
That
you...
only exemplifies the need to be mindful of our obligation to reinvest and to keep ourselves in a place so that we're vehicular solvency.
Yes.
But at the same time, we have the reality of a budget to deal with. And at this point, I think it's an appropriate decision to not do that. But let's keep in mind that we have to look at those things.
Well, you know what I kind of noticed at the Trinidad Police Department? Some of their cars are really old.
Really old.
I mean, old. And I'm like, how do they get from point A to point B? They're old.
I can attest that our maintenance staff does a good job. We've replaced a couple of engines this year, which has been more cost effective than replacing vehicles for a couple of our police vehicles. Staff has agreed, you know, the wish list is to look for vehicles next year. They understand the budget situation, they're putting them off, and we'll look at it in the following year, depending on how budget is. And with the fire vehicles, one of those things we always look for to try to find some grants to offset the cost of those very expensive pieces of equipment. They're well within operating, but we do need to start paying attention to them.
Well, we want all employees to get where they gotta go safely.
Yeah.
And all the equipment and such to be in proper working order. The nature of emergency response vehicles, fire trucks, police cars, and that kind of stuff, just a little bit different about the way they're driven and how they are depended upon to, in the interest of public safety.
And I'd say that is another reason why we need to get out there and make the citizens and voters in the city aware that we have to have that change to the home rule charter. Because God forbid if the fire truck would go kaput and we would have to buy one immediately, we could not take advantage of a low interest loan right now the way the city charter is. Nor could we do a lease purchase for perhaps some of the police vehicles, so I think it's important if we get that message out. And, you know, we were looking at $37,000 approximately for these vehicles, but with the pressures that are going to come to bear in terms of insurance premium costs. I mean, we need to save every nickel we can so that we're not balancing the budget on the backs of our employees. We're gonna have to look long and hard and make some tough decisions.
Consistent with what you just said, it was pointed out at the COG meeting recently, where Lennis from USDA, there's some low, very, very low interest money available for these kinds of things, but it doesn't do us a damn bit of good because we
Because
can't
our-
get involved in it.
Yeah, our,
Prohibits us.
yes, so you all pay attention and we need to start getting the message out to the voters. So we had a motion and a second, and I believe we're ready for the roll call.
Bolton?
The vote would be yes for a
Not doing
negative, not doing it.
Yes, we're not purchasing.
Yes, we're not doing it.
Yes.
Bernado?
Yes.
Matei?
Yes.
Miles?
Yes.
Shu?
Yes.
Velasquez?
Yes.
Baca Gonzalez?
Yes for not purchasing.
Was that unusually hard?
That was like a double negative or whatever. All right, the next agenda item is 8D, and that's consideration of the 2013 nonprofit funding. And Mr. Aker, do you have any comment on this item?
I have provided several options for City Council to consider on how we might want to address the nonprofits for the remainder of this year, and then I provided some suggestions that we don't have to talk about tonight, but just ideas to think about as we're moving forward in the budget discussions for how to handle the nonprofits in 2014. The options are City Council could authorize funding the second half of the nonprofit request such that they receive a full amount of full funding as proposed in the 2013 approved budget. That's per the attached table. You could open it up and ask for other nonprofits that may have not applied the first time to come back and ask for some funding, using the remaining funding as the base for that. Bless you. You could just fund the nonprofits that we feel that provide services that are directly deemed necessary for the operation of the city, or if the city were, if the nonprofits weren't providing it, the city would need to provide it. I included in that list the Trinidad Los Animas County Economic Development Corporation, Trinidad and Los Animas County Chamber of Commerce, Trinidad Arts and Cultural Advisory Commission, and the Senior Center. And then also Crossroads Turning Point, which we've already funded, but Noah's Ark, Animal Welfare, we've got contracts with both of those. We have, just to note on the contracts that I did include, Noah's Ark, I think it's a total of $9,200 plus $1,500 for utilities. So we have in essence funded them, but they've asked for more and we tentatively agreed to give them more. That's something that if they don't provide it, we'd have to look for elsewhere to look for animal shelter and things of that nature. Or you could choose not to authorize any of the additional funding due to budgetary concerns, or you may have some other thoughts as well. With that, I will just leave it at council's discussion, and staff will take your direction.
First, I have one question with regard to Crossroads. Both the agreements I reviewed reflect that the city's obligation is $24,000 a year. But in looking at the chart showing the first half allocation and payment to them, reflects $26,000.
That's correct. They had requested 26, and they said if we didn't fully fund them, they would pull out. And I mentioned to the director we need to update that, the contract to reflect that.
Also, do we know if the state is continuing to fund Crossroads?
Yes, and I don't have the dollar amount off the top of my head. We did talk, he and I talked about it when we discussed, but I can provide that. But it is a pretty significant amount that the state helps to offset what we provide, otherwise we might have to provide additional funding.
Well, and also if the state does not fund them, that releases our obligation.
Yes. However, then we'd still be faced with what do we do with
Yeah,
the
Yeah, we have
clients.
transport them.
So,
we have to transport.
if you'll recall, when I did the initial discussion, I believe if we were to have to do it, not having the facility here, it was 2.5, almost 3 times the cost of what we're currently funding. That would be a budgetary constraint, that's why I recommended let's just move it. Otherwise, it would be another budget item we'd have to take care of.
Okay.
Any other questions,
So the only
discussion?
3 we have is under contract is Noah's Ark, the Crossroads, and senior citizens, is that what you're
That's
counting?
correct, and the seniors contract is for utilities and cutting the grass and doing snow removal. It doesn't have a dollar amount that we're required to fund, but we do have contractual to give us some support.
I think that's kind of just forced on our council then to really look at those 3 that we have under contract and looking at the rest of them. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong by saying that, but, I mean, we have to fulfill our obligation with that contract, whether it's a senior citizens, Noah's Ark, or whatever. And if the funding's there, we could go with those 3 because of the contract, with the other ones I don't know.
We have met the contract requirements for Crossroads. I think we've met the contract requirements for Noah's Ark, and I know we're meeting the contract requirements for the senior center as it's currently spelled out.
The current contract for the senior center doesn't provide any of the dollar amounts that come out of this portion of the budget.
So if I'm understanding what you just said, is we are now considering whether to go through with the second part of those other people not included in those 3. Is that true?
Could you?
If I'm understanding what you just said, you said we have already met our contractual fulfillment to senior citizens, Noah's Ark, and Crossroads.
Yes.
So that what we are considering now is whether we want to contribute to the others.
And if you wish to contribute additionally to the senior center and to Noah's Ark, as they've requested additional funding through the nonprofit process.
It would be my suggestion that, because we need to, as I recollect, we had initially made the award to these groups, and then there was some confusion about whether they were going to get it all up front or in 2 halves. And as I'm seeing it, we are still owing them that second half, and that's a kind of a gentleman's agreement that we have with those folks, and I think we're obligated to honor that. And I don't know that we necessarily need to expand our liability by inviting more participants or encouraging greater amounts until we get a better handle on things. But for the time being, in my opinion, need to honor our agreements and the commitment we made to those who have not yet received their second half.
My memory is a little bit different about what we said. We said we wanted to take a second look at where, the sales tax revenues have been a downward trend. And I wasn't of the mind that the second half was a commitment. I don't want to not fund these things, but I do want to, given the role that Trinidad is on with creative districts, possibly Main Street program, I think we all recognize that the arts are important to economic development in the community. And I guess I would like to make some room to admit some new people in here, even if it's an amount of $1,000. And the 2 people that I think have contributed so greatly to this community and were instrumental in the creative district's designation are the E.R.A. Mitchell and SCRT.
They were very instrumental.
And SCRT got no money from tourism last year. I don't think the E.R.A. Mitchell has seen any money from the city in some time. One possible, adjustment of what you're suggesting is that we allocate $1,000 to each of those 2 entities in the others have gotten their full first half. And if they're only deemed pro rata for that $2,000, I don't think that's a lot to give in order to support those 2 very important institutions in Trinidad. That's an idea I have. I'd throw it out for discussion.
What's the dollar amount we're talking about excluding these top 3?
I'm seeing 26,000, and I'm assuming that's already been paid, that we've fully satisfied our obligation to Crossroads Turning Point.
Yes.
But that makes up part of the total $73,035 that's on the table being discussed.
So if you take Crossroads out, that's 47.
However, if you will look at the first half 2013 allocation column for Trinidad Arts and Culture Advisory Commission, it's showing $4,500 remaining due to them. That's incorrect. $2,250 is what is due to them as their second part of the allocation.
Can we do the math real quick? Because what I'm looking at is that bottom figure. In the chart we've been provided, it looks like there's $73,035 at stake. But I don't think that figure is correct. I think it's less.
We'll double check.
I hate silence.
Yes.
I know, just.
If I understand it correctly, my math is right, it's like 23,000. 23. You're the accountant. Help us out here, guy.
I don't have the information in front of me.
Sorry, I'm just kidding.
Tom's busily
That's
punching
right.
numbers.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought I had this written down, but I didn't figure it that way. I tried to anticipate what you guys were gonna ask.
That's right.
Yeah, every other number is that one, except for that one.
Yeah.
Assuming this is some sort of Excel spreadsheet, doesn't that mean that the number would be 73,035 minus 2250?
Should be, but I wanna double check just in case we have another. Okay, without. Okay, without Crossroads Turning Point, there's 84,285.
So that's really the money that's on the table.
Yes.
It came up with 44,785.
Well, redo. I came up with 7. No, just kidding.
Would you get 44,285?
That's what Tom got.
She's correct, 44,785.
785. So the money on the table we're talking about is $44,785. And I will just weigh in again that $44,785 is a big chunk of change that could go toward our current financial dire straits. Having said that, I know that the Sayers Senior Citizens Center and Noah's Ark, in my opinion, are two that we absolutely need to meet that second half commitment.
I agree.
That's a moral obligation.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that, I think those three are set-asides.
but as for the others, I'm sorry to be rain on parades, but I'm just looking at the possibility that we'll have another little pot of cash that can be applied to the hardships that we're running into with premiums for the insurance. I'm concerned about just trying to hang on to every nickel we can, as hard as that is, so that we're not putting our employees at risk. And I know if you're looking at 44,785 and you're taking 12,500 for Noah's Ark and 9,675 for the Senior Citizens Center, that's still going to leave you about a good 20,000 plus that could be thrown back in the pot to be applied to these other needs that are still out there hanging with our budget. Not only for this year, but for next year as well.
I'll just offer the comment, it's one thing to drive a truck for another 10 or 20,000 miles. It's another thing to put hurt on things that I think are important for economic development. And I think they're different animals, you know. I'll just leave it at that.
Those are things that are important. They're important to our community. They're important to our children. They're important to certain types of people in need. And I would go along with that if we had revisited it back in June when we were supposed to. But at this late date, I don't see where in good conscience we can do that.
I missed your point, I'm sorry, where we can do.
Where in good conscience we can take away not funding any of them at all, other than the four select.
I think the people in town here knows exactly how our budgets are. And I think they know the problem that we're having right now and looking into the budget. We're not only talking Trinidad, Pueblo, everywhere else is having budget problems. And I do agree with the mayor that we have to tighten our belts. And I know that sitting on this council before I had to make tough decisions. And these are all tough decisions. And like I was saying, we have to pull together. If we're gonna make this work, we just gotta all pull together. People are gonna have to understand, we're gonna have to make major cuts. Where do we get this? We're sitting here looking at all this big deficit. And, you know, I love all these little people that help us with our town. But I think people are willing to understand the financial dire that we're in now. I'm putting this other extra money away, you know, just like I said about the trucks. It don't sound like a lot of money. $37,000 don't sound like a lot of money, but in our dire straits, it is a lot of money. So I kind of do agree with the mayor, what she said, and I think that our people, they will agree what kind of position we are in now. That's all I have to say. I know it's not fair, doesn't seem fair, but we gotta tighten our belt somewhere. If we're gonna make it to this budget, we better do something and do it now, and don't wait.
Well, if we have 44,785 and you subtract 12,500 for Noah's Ark and 9,675 for the Senior Citizen Center, that leaves $22,610 on the table that we're talking about. And
But you're not even Crossroads out of that way.
no, Crossroads has been
no,
taken care of.
Crossroads has already been paid.
Okay, yeah, I think that's what I had in mind.
The only other two that I am inclined to think that are absolutely critical is the advocates against domestic assault and the Southern Colorado Developmental Disability Services, because one pertains to individuals who have been abused, and sometimes our law enforcement, they have a place to take the victim of a domestic assault, and sometimes there's children involved. And with Colorado Developmental Disability Services, we're talking about some of the citizens in our community with developmental disabilities that need as much support as we can possibly give them. So looking at including them in the process, that's taking another $3,485 and $675, which would leave us in the neighborhood of about $18,000 thereabouts. 18,450. So that we have. We gotta think about that.
And so you're proposing that we do not fund the Chamber of Commerce or the Economic Development?
Exactly.
Why?
Because of that 18,450, I believe we should hang on to it in our reserves. We're facing some critical budget numbers, and I just think every nickel we can put aside and not spend, we need to seriously look at that. The Chamber of Commerce can solicit contributions from the membership. Economic development is getting back on its feet, and I think they have a mechanism for funding it in terms of pay to play. For example, if somebody from TSJC is going to be on the board, that they contribute to the operating costs.
If I can just make a comment on economic development, it too is running on fumes right now. There's no executive director, there's no money coming in from the county at this point. I certainly would want to table economic development until we have a further discussion with the county commissioners. I think we'd have to close the doors.
I think the proposal is pulling the rug out from under organizations that have waited this long, since June, to learn whether or not they're going to get their other funding.
Well, I know at our work session, you had talked strictly more for economic development. You never said a word about the chambers.
I didn't mean to
No,
leave them
and I'm
out.
just saying, yeah, I know. But I'm just saying, why would you just go with economic development and not chambers?
I've included the chamber in my discussion this time, that was my
Yeah,
area.
tonight you did, but on our work session, it was more on economic development. And I thought, well, chambers is real important too. But I'm gonna have to go your way for the fact that there is no money. You know, you're trying to save every little penny. So if Chambers is not gonna get anything, I don't think economic development should either. No offense to you, Michelle, but
No, I was merely making the point that that would be the first casualty of not funding anyone here. I am a
Well-
supporter of the chamber, and I would like to see them considered equivalent to economic development.
that's how I look at it.
And I do too. I was only using that as an example of something that will be.
Well, both of those.
I'd also like to see the arts people preserved in here as well.
Well, I would too, but my preference, that's mine anyway, would go to domestic assault. Because when you're picking up these people, I mean, they gotta have a place. And, you know, I'm trying to look at it at that point of view.
Well, and I didn't mean to exclude them either. My proposal was that we have a basket that we don't touch. I think we've identified that as Crossroads Turning Point, Noah's Ark, and the Sayre Senior Center. And then the mayor is suggesting adding to that group advocates against domestic assault and the developmental disability services. I guess all I was saying is that we can do that and then take our remaining basket and allocate it proportionally among the other organizations.
So you would want to give up that whole complete $18,000 is what you're saying?
I think so, because when I look at the list of people on here, I think that, I think they're in desperate need of support.
So
I know, I know,
So is the city.
but I think if SCRT closes, it'll have a big impact on the city.
Oh, I thought they were great, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying they're running on fumes at this point. Doesn't seem, $18,000 doesn't seem to me to be a big investment in what these organizations and their continued liability can contribute to us in future years.
And they're all hanging by a string, and they're all dependent on the city. And they all help with things that promote our town.
That means that's right.
No.
Go ahead, Anthony.
But we're left with $18,450. And the question in my mind is, do we get bigger bang for that buck by saving $18,450 and using it for whatever needs the city may have? And there's an argument to be made for that. It's not all that big of an amount, quite honestly, I think, significant as it may be. But do we get a bigger bang if we choose to exhaust those resources to help to sustain all these different programs? And I gotta say, I think that the latter makes more sense to me.
You know, we're working on a budget for 2014. This stuff has already been budgeted for 2013. So I would say, let's use the money for 2013, make some changes for the 2014 budget to implement those three. And, you know, there's several towns, Pueblo and are doing no more nonprofit funding. And we may have to look at that, and then that breaks up the issue. The problem would be to figure out which are the ones that we need with the contracts, and those are the most important. And the money in the city don't have it, so we have to look at that. But my goal would be to go ahead and use it, the 2013 budget money that we have, and just be more careful on the 2014 budget, because that's what's gonna be the important thing is next year, because that money's already been budgeted.
Yes.
I think that the advantage of that approach is it gives fair warning to people that they're gonna need to increase their fundraising activities, but I think as Carol pointed out, it's a little late in the year to be telling you to suddenly do a whole lot more fundraisers.
Yes.
It's a little crowded towards the end.
You initially, Michelle, if I understand correctly, were proposing to include the arts, which heretofore had no claim to anything.
Well,
Is that true?
the A.R. mentioned, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So I guess my question is, of the amount that we have remaining, you had talked about a prorate distribution, so as to include those two.
So as to include those two at an entry level of $1,000.
Okay, so if we were to do that, that leaves us $16,450
Right.
for the balance of our commitments as Frank has.
And then, yeah, and then that would go for the non-set-asides. I don't know if we decided about did we set aside domestic assault and disabilities?
Yes.
Okay, and that was your calculation, then?
Yeah, that's
Right, so then that would be spread, subtract 2,000 from that one for the A.R. Mitchell, one for SCRT, and the balance would be spread proportionally among
The rest of them?
16,450 would be
16,450.
proportionately distributed among the remaining.
Probably before you change your mind and make a motion that we pass that.
Motion by Mr. Shu, and my understanding is that we would be funding $12,500 for Noah's Ark, $3,485 for Advocates Against Domestic Assault,
Correct.
$9,675 for the E.R.A Sayers Senior Citizens Center,
Yes.
$675 for Developmental Disability Services. And then, if I understand correctly, Ms. Miles is proposing $1,000 for the A.R. Mitchell Museum and $1,000 for the Southern Colorado Repertory Theater, which leaves $16,450 to be proportionately distributed among the remaining entities that have not been named, excluding Crossroads Turning Point, because they've already received their full allotment.
That is correct.
Did I misstate something,
I have
Mr.
a
Aker?
couple of clarifications.
Okay.
If the other ones besides A.R. Mitchell and the Southern Colorado Repertory Theater were at zero, they remain at zero.
Yes.
Is that my understanding?
All right, if they were at zero, they remain at zero. That would mean
Farmers market, for example.
farmers market wouldn't get a proportion of the $16,450, nor would the Trinidad Municipal Golf Association, nor would Southern Colorado Youth Academy, nor would the Culebra Range Community Coalition.
And then
Mr. Aker?
proportionally based on their original allocation or some other,
Unfortunately, based upon this second half hour.
Percentage of the
Okay.
remaining amount.
okay.
Has everybody got that straight?
Yes.
Do you want us to bring it back for another meeting for approval, or just do the math and
I think do the
double
math.
check it and make
Do the
sure it's
math and
correct?
do it.
So
Okay.
we've got a motion by Mr. Shu. Does everybody understand the slice and dice?
Second.
Second by Ms. Bolton. Any discussion? And I believe we're ready for the roll call.
Bolton?
Yes.
Benado?
Yes.
Matei?
Yes.
Miles?
Yes.
Shu?
Yes.
Velasquez?
Yes.
Bachman? Gonzalez?
Yes. And the next agenda item, I lost my place. Bear with me one little second.
Well, we're also going to make any decisions about how we will treat this next year.
You can have those discussions now, or you can have those discussions at the time of budget discussions. It's purely at the council. I wanted to provide you my thoughts initially based on some ideas. We've added, you'll see in the budget, we've done some allocations in the budget. I think we could have the discussion at that time as well. That is purely council's desire.
I'm fine with it.
We have to make it part of the budget discussion.
So we're ready to move on to the next agenda item, number 9. That's the payment of bills. Are there any questions regarding the bills that were provided in council's packet? Ms. Miles has a question.
All right, I'm looking at legal bills, and I know I'm looking at payments of about $80,000. No, I'm sorry, $81,000. And this is mostly related to ARPA, going out to the external council. And I know a lot of time was spent preparing for a trial that didn't happen. But these are large numbers, and as I remember, within But I'm a little concerned as we're looking to save Constance here, that we really keep a firm grip on what's going forward with these items, and also to check whether we are well within range. And how much is the delay in the court trial cost us? And we're talking about $18,000 here, $30,000 or $40,000 there. If there's any way we can exercise control on these numbers, which are very substantial, I'd recommend.
We will, and my understanding, and we will closely watch them, the ARPA, our lawsuit against ARPA, there should be very little against that until we get right up to trial date, unless we end up into the mediation or the discussions about trying to reach an agreement, a settlement discussion, then there would be some time. There is some time being spent from the attorneys on the Sikora lawsuit, doing discovery and responses of that nature, so that one's probably going to continue to move on, but Mr. Downs and I can chat with both Dixie and Juan to kind of get, maybe get an estimate from them on where they think we're going to be in the next several months.
Because that money, I think, is coming out of the power and light.
Right.
And basically, it's depleting our resources in the power and light department. So it might behoove us to have a little heart-to-heart with outside counsel.
We'll do it.
Any additional questions regarding the bills?
I'd make a motion to approve the payment of bills.
Motion by Ms. Bolton,
Second.
second by Ms. Velasquez. And I believe we're ready for the roll call.
Bolton?
Yes.
Benado?
Yes.
Ray?
Yes.
Miles?
Yes.
Shu?
Yes.
Velasquez?
Yes.
Gonzalez?
Yes. The next agenda item is number 10, the approval of payroll. May I have a motion to approve payroll for the time period from September 14, 2013 through September 27, 2013?
So moved.
Okay, motion by Mr. Shu, and I thought I heard a second by Ms. Velasquez. And if there's no discussion, we're ready for the roll call.
Bolton?
Yes.
Benado?
Yes.
Matei?
Yes.
Miles?
Yes.
Shu?
Yes.
Velasquez?
Yes.
Gonzalez?
Yes. The next agenda item is number 11, and that is to consider an executive session for the following reasons. For a conference with the city's attorney for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions under Colorado Revised Statute Section 24-6-4024B, discussion regarding legal matters pertaining to the North Lake Dam Rehabilitation Project. And 2, for discussion of a personnel matter under Colorado Revised Statute Section 24-6-4022F, and not involving any specific employees who have requested discussion of the matter in open session, any member of this body or an elected official, the appointment of any person to fill an office of this body or of an elected official, or personnel policies that do not require the discussion of matters personal to particular employees, and specifically the formal city attorney evaluation. May I have a motion to go into executive session for the stated reasons?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Bolton,
Second.
second by Mr. Shu. Any discussion or questions? And I think we're ready for the roll call.
Bolton?
Yes.
Benado?
Yes.
Matei?
Yes.
Miles?
Yes.
Shu?
Yes.
Velasquez?
Yes.
Gonzalez?
Yes. The audience may remain in council chambers, and council will excuse itself into the adjoining conference room. I do not anticipate that there will be any action following the executive session other than official action to adjourn the meeting. Is that?
That's good.
That's pretty much it. Thank you so much. Before we go into executive session, do you all want to take like just maybe a 5-minute break? All right, thank
That's a
you.
highlight.
Sir.
Go ahead, you